Hey, what's up, everybody? It's yours truly, Lorenzo Neal with Bleav in the Chargers. Today, I'm so excited. A man that I love, a man that I watch play, a man that I revered, looked up to, also was a member with the Jets that he was coaching in the front office when I played there. Welcome to the show, Carl Banks, two-time Super Bowl champ, also up for the Hall of Fame senior cut, member of the Giants, also a host with Bleav, also with his partner Bob Papa. Welcome, Mr. Banks. How we doing, my brother?
I am good, Lo Neal. How you doing, my guy?
Hey, legendary, baby. We still here. We're above ground. That beats our Turner,
Indeed.
right?
Indeed. Indeed. Yes, sir.
Hey, you know what, man? I just got before we talk about the game. I know we'll talk X's and O's and talk about the Giants and the Chargers and the matchup. But just when you think about your era of football, our era of football, watch you play. There was a team, of course, I played for the Saints. We had the Dome Patrol, Ricky
Mm-hmm.
Jaxson, Pat Swelling, Von Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about just the relationship because, Ricky and LT, great friends. What was the similarity in those backing the Dome Patrol and the Giants, what you guys brought to the table? Tell us about that era of football. What's the biggest difference from then to now, if any?
Well, I think if I'm putting it mildly, we gave zero fucks. We that's the difference between an era of football, right? And look, I adore these young kids now, and I root for them, but it's different. It's different. And we were all like Pat and Vaughn and
City champ, Ricky Jack,
Ricky
Sam Mills.
and Sam Mills. We were all friends, right? We
Right.
all admired each other, like just no different than within our division was the Eagles, right? And Seth Joyner and that crew. We were all like, we actually looked at film of each other just to see if we could outdo something somebody else did, right? And so we just didn't care like that
Right.
for our opponent, right? So we wanted you to fear us, but we wanted to give you a reason to fear us. And it was it was an all-day thing, right? And so it's a little different now. I'm starting to see a little bit of that dog come back. Micah Parsons has got some dog in him.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I love what I'm seeing from Brian Burns, because he talks little and plays a lot. But hey, and you guys got some dogs, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think the reason that mentality exists is because, the head man is from the same era we're from,
That very, very valid. When you think about the game, tell the fans and the listeners when we play the difference between injury and hurt, and why do you think there's more injuries when guys are in way better? I don't know about way better, but they're in better shape. They're a little faster. But you can't tell me that we couldn't play in this era. And people say, "Oh, they're too fast." Like, no, we guys were still running 4.3. Daryl Green, Think about what you guys how we played. I think we could play in any era, but the durability. Why is it so different now?
I don't think they train for combat. I think they are pseudo bodybuilders. And that's not a knock on, what it is, but they don't practice. And for all the good that the Players Association has done, I think the biggest harm, and I understand why they did it, but the biggest harm was to eliminate practice from football.
Man.
And that's why we see some of the injuries we see. Because the training in the actual game, they don't mesh up, right? We trained, we practiced, and then the game was actually easier for us than our training and our practice. These guys, very limited practice, very limited contact, and then you go into a game and it's full contact, and it's different, right? Guys are fast, guys are strong. But I would say if we had to just freeze time right now and teleport us forward into today's game with everything that we know mentally about the sport, we would more than excel, because you had to be you had to be mentally tougher, and then the success fail rate in an era where you might get the snot knocked out of you, but you got to line up and not let it happen again, right? Because the guy who did it is going to continue to want to do it.
Right.
I can see it today. One guy get a lick in, and you might not have to worry about him the rest of the game, right? He wants to shake your hand. I got you on that one, right? It was just different, and
Right.
so. But if we were to drop in now, and people were like, "Well, you guys, and Ronnie Lott, you guys," you're assuming we're not smart enough to adjust. How about this, Lorenzo? Most of the rule changes that we see today are because of us.
Exactly.
So we've always had to adjust because there was always a different, like the 2-step rule became the 1-step rule and became the half-step rule, all because of us. So we've all had to adjust to it as we went on. And most of these rule changes are, a result of how we play football. But I admire the game and I respect the game still.
Of course.
And the kids that play it. And I don't begrudge them their money or anything. I just, I don't like the fact that they legislated, football out of the game. And it's tough because I know where this is going. And this is going to be unpopular if anybody on Park Avenue is listening, but every year they release the safety stats, right? And every year around Super Bowl, hey, we had less of this and less of that. Our kickoffs are safer. Roger gives his annual report. This is all leading the players towards an 18th game because they're going to justify it by saying it's a safer game. And then they're going to look up and these kids are going to be playing 18 games. They'll make more money for it. But I don't think the game's any more safer. They just have legislated certain aspects out of it. But it is what it is, man.
No, Carl, I couldn't agree with you more. We're joined by the great Carl Banks, 2-time Super Bowl, should be a member of the Hall of Fame, on the list again. When you think about what drove you, when you were with those guys, those other guys, the linebacking crew, the great hit Montana, and how you guys played against that greater, what drove Carl Banks to be great?
I think we drove each other, right? Having a teammate like Lawrence Taylor, who, when I first got to the Giants, practiced faster than I ever played in college. And just seeing the standard of what excellence should look like just drove me, right? I've always been a self-driven person, but, seeing somebody at another level is like, I need to get here, right? And I need to stay here. And just being driven by being the best, driven to be the best in a league, right? Having the best unit was our motivation. Winning, being the best, dominating, that was our motivation, just to be as dominating week in and week out as possible.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I had freaking Jim Moore. We're going 3 times a day, practicing 3 days. People have no idea. Goal line, all the linemen had to wear the knee brace and the braces because it was so intense and so physical. And then I had the great Tuna too, coach. He coached me, even though he coached you as well. Jim Moore, I've been there playing on, didn't have 75 yards of turf. You know how bad the New Orleans was. But it was friggin' going against Ricky Jackson, Sam Mills every day, 9-on-7. It made you tough. As I digress and just talk about this game, when you think about where you guys are at, the Giants and the organization, very rarely this team could be 3-0. This team has been in every single game, had an opportunity. What has been the biggest difference? Why the Giants are 0-3 compared to being 3-0?
I would say realistically they could have been 2-1.
Right.
The Washington game was just not not as competitive as it should have been, or as the other two were. I just think it comes down to the little things, Lorenzo. I think attention to detail. In that, we always, as a football fan base, the first place we look to point fingers is coaching, right? And though some things could be valid schematically, but when you have a game in Dallas where the team, all but 3 defensive series, they had a penalty that kept the Dallas Cowboys drives alive. Second and long penalty, third and whatever penalty. Every single series of regulation, with the exception of 3, they had penalties. That's not coaching.
No.
That's self-discipline.
Sure.
Right? Or you have a 30-yard run that could have been stopped at the backfield when 10 guys played it right, and the safety takes a bad angle and misses a tackle. Well, that's not coaching. Now, when it was 2nd and 14 and they had to get a stop to win the game to prevent it from going to overtime, and they were in soft zone, that's a coaching thing, but it goes both ways. And so to answer your question, they're holding themselves back with little things, right?
Right, right.
I think defensively they played a lot better, a heck of a lot better last week against Kansas City. It was basically a field goal game. They were keeping Kansas City out of the end zone until they couldn't hold the rope anymore.
Right.
But then offensively, it was a stagnant game. They couldn't get anything going against cover 2, right? They ran the ball decent. And I'm not sure it was without scheming. And so because players come in different heights, and they've been great at those heights their whole life. Right. And defenses will strategize, right? Russell can't see the middle of the field if you're rushing up the pocket. That's just the reality of it, right?
Sure.
So if you need to get vertical passes down the field on cover 2, ripping the seam, he can't see it, right? Or he had to, kind of retreat. He did not see it, put it that way. Or if you're trying to hit slants, getting hands up, knocking balls down, those are plays that were available to them that couldn't get done. And so it's a combination of things, but there are little fixes that can be done.
Sure.
I think, running the football, they've done a decent job. They just have not had a complementary passing game, with the exception of Dallas, which is, everybody discounts Dallas as a bad team. Well, they're on the schedule, know. And the thing is, where I think Giants fans, and I know they're so tired because it's been years and years, but when the schedule came out, most of these fans said that the team would be 0-4 because they just looked at the opponent, right?
Right.
2 of their first 4 opponents were in the Super Bowl. 1 was in the finals, the NFC, the conference finals. And Dallas was a team that, had won, a significant amount of games over the years. So they were saying, you know what, we got to get through a tough stretch. But then when they're watching the football and it doesn't look different, they became a bit more triggered because, they kind of understood that maybe, these games were not going to be won, but we should be able to see how improved this team is. And the way they lost, the Washington game was just, they felt it wasn't an improvement.
Right.
Kansas City was better, but then the offense looked crazy, right? You couldn't score points as many times as you were in the red zone. So it's tough sledding in New York.
It is. With that being said, what's the biggest difference, in your opinion, between Dart and Russell? The pros and cons between these 2 guys, and why would he have success against the Chargers defense that's been playing pretty well too this year?
Well, he gives them a better chance for success
Why?
because he's at this stage of his career versus Russ. He's mobile, and Coach Harbaugh, Colin Kaepernick, so he knows what 11-on-11 football looks like, with the conflict it causes for defenses. Now he knows how to defend it, but you still have to defend it.
Sure.
Right? Broken plays, a quarterback who can scramble and move with the football. That's the difference between Russell at this stage of his career and Jaxson Dart. So you kind of know what Russell is, and he's been a positive for the team, but they needed something different. They needed to get the offense going when you have a dynamic receiver like Malik Neighbors who basically couldn't get a look until the fourth quarter, and you just couldn't scheme things to get him the football. Then that just tells you, the offense was stagnant and they needed something different. But at the end of the day, Russ is still one injury away from being back in there. So they don't dislike him, but they just need a different dynamic. And I think Jaxson Dart is the guy who can force a defense to play 11-on-11 football, right? And
Right.
to honor that.
In looking at this game, and you're talking about a team that's traveling 3 times, one time zone, 3 hours different game, rather, flying to the East Coast. Do you look at that in this early game for the Chargers and know the line's at 6? You think about Skattebo, what he's been able to do. Do you see him with the bigger role? Do you see him trying to get this run game? The Chargers played a tough physical game against Denver. Where do you see this game?
I can tell you head to head, the Chargers are a seasoned football team. Their coach will have them prepared, right? We know as former players, it's hard to legislate human behavior.
Sure.
So, some guys may look at the Giants and see it as easy. Other guys may not take it as serious. But I can say that if the Chargers let the Giants hang around, the Giants are going to make some plays. There's enough on film. If they cut the tape on and they see where the threats are with the Giants, it's not 1 or 2 guys. They've got probably about 6 guys on both sides, combined on both sides of the ball that are difference makers.
Your tight end is unbelievable.
Yeah, tight end, they can rush the passer. Like I said, Burns is relentless. Kayvon Thibodeau, and then the rookie, he can get some things accomplished too. So there's some concern. So I'm sure Coach Harbaugh is really making sure his guys understand, and Greg Roman, that, hey, look, they're 0-3, but they can play like a 3-0 team in certain areas. So if you let them, they'll get after it. So we'll see what happens.
Have you seen enough from the Chargers offense to say they can score? Because the Chargers, when you think about scoring, like you said, the Giants, you let them stick around. I think they got one of the best fronts in football. Look what Denver were able to do to the Chargers, disrupt Herbert, get him off his spot. Yes, he's still one of an elite quarterback. But do you look at this Chargers offense that hasn't scored enough that says, I'm telling you, this Giant team is going to be in this game because the Chargers thus far haven't shown me they have enough offense to put up 30, put up 27 on a consistent basis?
Well, I think losing Najee Harris in their rotation does not help them. But I'm of the opinion, I've seen Justin Herbert up close and personal, Keenan Allen up close and personal. They can put up 30 if they need to. I mean, they just put up enough points to, they can score 1 more than the other guy, or they can score 20 more than the other guy, because the defense is really good. So I think they can dial up whatever they need to dial up with Greg Roman. But, look, they want to be a balanced offense, right? And I think they need to be a balanced offense because you lost your left tackle. And was that preseason? You lost your left tackle?
Didn't even make it this. Yeah, already out. Yeah, Joe Alt. They switched Joe Alt.
So correct. So, you're trying to find your balance, and everybody knows offensive linemen is hard to find. Good help there is hard to find. So you want to continue to create some balance so that you don't become a one-dimensional team and expose where your weaknesses are up front. But they can put up 30. I mean, I've seen it. And, when he gets hot and he's dealing and Keenan is feeling it, they can put up a lot of points.
Sure. Is this game though? The Giants. Is this I know we say must win week. It's not must until you're out of it, mathematically out of it. What is the load of Scatterboo? This young guy. What have you seen from him? And also, what have you seen from Omarion Hampton? What's the pro and cons of both these backs? How similar are they? When you see Omarion Hampton getting drafted early, do you think Scatterboo's just as good, if not more effective? How do you balance these two backs?
So Hampton is, I think, perfect for the scheme that he has great vision, right? And I've looked at all 3 games this year, and he's a linebacker's nightmare because he can get his shoulders going in one direction, and all of a sudden he bends it all the way back. As linebackers, if a guy's shoulders is going one way, just definitively, you pretty much got a pretty good read. But he's a guy who can read that zone and again find a crease and cut all the way back and, set the linebackers up. And he's a good strong runner too, good balance. Cam Skattebo, the thing that I know you would love about him is he's got great contact balance, right? Guys bounce off of him because he's whatever he does, he stays on his feet and he's a hard runner. He makes it difficult decision for smaller guys to want to come up and tackle him. Once he gets going downhill, it's, business decisions are being made when you see how he runs the football. But that style of running is, it's going to serve him well. But the fact that he can catch the football in space is going to help keep his career, on balance because he's not going to be able to take the amount of hits. He's a contact guy.
He is. That's why I worry about him because he runs so hard. He leads with his neck. I worry about him because he's small in stature. But Carl, he's mean. I love him. He was a guy I watched in Arizona State. Runs hard. This guy runs hard and he's relentless. He doesn't want to just go down. I don't know if you get in his ear and say, "Hey, young fella, you want to last a couple more years? You got to know when to get down."
Either that or they're just gonna have to call more passes to him or something, because he's got great hands, but man, he is a run to contact guy. He's got great feet, great balance, but if you're gonna walk into a phone booth with him, he's probably the one who's coming out. He's does not shy away, but. I don't know if Tyrone Tracy is going to be available. He had a shoulder last game.
Right.
And I'm not sure if they elevated Turbo Miller or not, Dante Miller. So I don't think Skattebo's going to be the main guy, but he'll be the focal point of the offense, I'm sure.
Oh, no question. And he and Jason, him and Dart, they work well together. See some of the things that they're able to do, just free playing backyard football in scramble situations. It's really awesome. Last question for me. The time for the Chargers, 10 o'clock kick is a, 7 a.m., for, using the West Coast. What type of, if any, what type of effect does that have on a team traveling?
It depends on what they did during the week. They're so advanced now. When you go into, to the facilities and you walk into any bathroom that the players use, there's a whole hydration chart and giving you the amount of sleep you should have before you get on the plane during the course of the week. And it's interesting, the sports science, but they understand what these kids' bodies need. It'll impact, like I said, you can't legislate human behavior, right? There's TikTok on every phone. There's video games on every phone. And we're talking about 20-something-year-olds, right? So, you're supposed to get X amount of sleep during the course of the week, and you probably had 3 hours one night, 5 hours another night.
Right. We did it. We know how to do it.
Exactly.
and still balled
Exactly.
out, right? And still go out and get
Yes.
4 or 5 sacks. Yeah.
Yes. But it's, the sports science is there, but again, it depends on how well they adhere to it. I know the coaches and the medical staffs, they always do their part to make sure that the players get the necessary information. And when they're in the facility, they give them the stuff that they need, in terms of hydration and all of that stuff. But once they leave, they do adult things.
Right. Exactly. What can you as a former player and as a guy that's working with Bleav and also on the call, what type of performance can you expect? What are you not hoping to see, but what are you kind of demanding? What do you think this Giant team is going to give you? Is this a game that you're gonna probably see their best? If they didn't, would that disappoint you? Would you be surprised? What are you expecting? What's your expectation because where the Giants are and the moves that they made for this week?
So I fully expect this to be a supercharged, pardon the pun, team, both offense and defense. I expect that. I would be disappointed if mistakes are occurring that occurred last week. I think, with all the excitement and all the enthusiasm, the attention to detail has to be paramount. The adrenaline, the enthusiasm for the new guy, that's natural. That's natural occurring in athletes, right? But it all comes down to, have you corrected the mistakes? Because San Diego or LA,
Sure.
they've weathered storms. They're a veteran team. They know what enthusiasm looks like from an opposing team. They're going to focus on exploiting your weaknesses. Have you paid attention to those details, or are you so caught up in the hype that mistakes are happening one after another and the Chargers are just running up the score on you? I expect them to come out ready to play. I would be disappointed if they are committing the same mistakes that they did last week.
Right. I agree with you. And I think the Chargers are going to get the Giants' best. Once again, visited by the great Carl Banks, 2-time Super Bowl. Guy should be in the Hall of Fame. You voters, everyone that's out there listening, make sure we get this guy in. Long overdue, brother. Love you as a man, as a person. You're a better person than you ever were a player.
Likewise, my
So
brother.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks you for joining
Likewise.
the Chargers. I really appreciate everything you do, brother. Continue to be great.
Thank you, man. Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Yeah, man. So it's good to see